talking about, and we don't know whether it will happen now or in 10 years' time, in between, and when it happens, maybe you're better off in real estate on a non-leveraged basis, where you still have the roof over your house and farmland and so forth, rather than to have your account at MF Global and poof, everything is gone.
Exactly.
You know, that is the point.
Yeah.
You know, I think people should wake up and realize maybe we're all lucky if we can keep 50% of what we have today when the big bust occurs. And if everything collapses by 90% or becomes worse and you have only lost 50%, you're the king.
So let me ask you this. You've been around a long time. You've been in financial markets for more than 40 years.
Yes.
Are you a longer-term pessimist that you think civilization will end?
No, I'm very optimistic because I ride motorcycles in Thailand, so you have to be an optimist, and you know I do all kinds of things. But you have to be realistic, and what can't last forever won't last forever. You know, you have this huge overexpansion of the financial sector relative to the real economy. So a real economy would be this size and the financial sector this size. But now we have the real economy this size and the financial sector goes up 20 stories high. And that one day will be deflated. The same. You have this huge wealth inequality today, where some of the rich people, they make a lot of money and the rest haven't progressed in the last 20 years because their minor salary increases have been offset by rising prices. So they're actually worse off than 20 years ago, the working class and the lower middle class. And that will not last forever. The aristocracy in Europe lasted for a long time, but not forever. They ended with chopping off their necks.
I was just thinking the French Revolution. I mean, that was an epic spending on debt, fueling wars in other countries.
Yes.
And finally, the proletariat come to the gate and take back your castle. Right?
Yes.
So
as happened in many countries. Or in Russia, what happened then, you had communism, same in China and so forth. So nothing is permanent. But, you know, I'm 66, so I'm not so worried about these things. It will happen maybe after I go somewhere.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're not long-term pessimistic, because it seems to me that people have been looking to governments in different phases of history. This is not a new thing, where people, first of all, think governments can save us, then realize they can't, then behead them, and then start over.
And by the way, you know, the more pessimistic you are, you have to think, what is the asset I really don't want to own? I think it's government bonds in the long run and cash. Equities, you know, if everything collapses, the corporations, they'll probably survive. There'll still be, I guess, an IBM, or there'll still be a Triple M, or there'll still be, say, a Canadian Pacific Railroad, and so forth and so on. You just have to choose companies that are not over-leveraged and that are run conservatively. But say a basket of equities will preserve some wealth. It may go down, as I said, 50%. But maybe 50% is better than to lose all your money in Greek bonds.
Or one layer of risk that I think may be new in this dynamic is this whole levered traders, high-frequency traders. And isn't there a risk that, yes, the company might be there, but you're trading a paper asset version on markets that are subject to all these crazy forces?
Yes, exactly. And I mean, this high-frequency trading, you know, there can be events when it just doesn't work anymore. The markets are closed and so forth. So I would be, say, very reluctant to give all my money to someone who does high-frequency trading or so.
Or you're participating with them, though, when you're in these markets.
But in general, the best advice I can tell people is you have to diversify, because you don't know exactly when it will happen, and if it happens, and how the world will look in 5 or 10 years' time. So you want to have some assets or some money in precious metals, and some in real estate, and some in equities, and some in cash. And you have to probably also diversify essentially the custody of your assets. And you have some in Canada, some maybe in Australia, some maybe in Asia, in Singapore, Hong Kong, and so forth.
Okay, well.
But you need a lot of money.
I was just thinking that's the %.
You have to afford to lose the 50%.
That's right, and still have enough to spread out in all those accounts and countries. And
But you know, in life you can also live modestly. So don't need to have always the highest luxury.
So your bottom line on the banking sector, the smaller it shrinks over time, the greater the gift to humanity will be.
Yes, I mean, I think the whole financial sector will have to shrink dramatically. And I always argued, you know, the bankers and so forth, they went to the governments and said, oh, it's a disaster if we fail and so on. But basically you could have ring-fenced the banks. In other words, the depositors that have their, and the bank has a fiduciary duty and a social function in a system and so forth, and should essentially be a store of value for your cash. Now, what you could have done is the depositors protect them. And the rest of the bank, the whole trading aspect of the bank, you farm out and let them solve their own problems. Because that sector is, say, Goldman Sachs owes money to AIG, AIG to UBS, UBS to, I don't know, BMO or whatever it is. And that, in my opinion, has no economic function. It's just trading among each other.
Right.
And if that disappeared, I don't think there would be great economic damage.
Well, in other places...
On the contrary, the problem is that most financial people are so useless that you can't retrain them.
Right.
They couldn't become farmers. They can't even be taxi drivers. They can't fix anything.
Right.
They are totally useless. So governments have to keep them busy in the financial sector because that's the only thing they can do. Buy and sell and buy and sell.
But we're in a massive downsize. They've been laying
Yes.
them off, right?
Yes.
So more of that to come.
Yes.
Learn how to farm.
Yes.
Learn how to do what? Be a good walker in case you need to get around without fuel.
Well, in America, you have record gun sales at the present time. So I guess a lot of people are learning how to shoot.
And I think, you know, in the end, he's already said he's an optimist. It's just keep your powder dry. Don't believe governments and don't become a banker. Tell your kids. Thanks, Marc. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate
Yes,
meeting
my
you.
pleasure.
Thanks
Thank
for coming and speaking to
My
us
pleasure.
today. And thank you.
The Money and Wealth Show has been brought to you by AmericanManganeseInc.com.